I am honored to introduce our next speaker, Senator Tammy Duckworth from Illinois. She is the first Thai American woman and the second of 3 Asian American women to serve in the U.S. Senate. She currently serves on the Senate Armed Services Committee, the Foreign Relations Committee, the Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, and the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Committee. Aimee Cho will be our moderator for this discussion. Aimee is a general assignment reporter and fill-in anchor for NBC4. During her time at NBC4, Aimee has won 3 Emmy Awards and a Chesapeake Associated Broadcasters Award. Please welcome Senator Duckworth and Aimee Cho to the stage.
Did they start serving drinks already? What's going on with this crowd?
I think we can make that happen.
Yeah.
So good to be here with you, Senator Duckworth, and all of you during this lunchtime. I guess I'll just dive right in. Obviously, as we just heard, you're a trailblazer in so many ways. The first Thai American woman elected to Congress, first person born in Thailand elected to Congress, first senator to give birth while in office. Let's go back to the beginning and talk about what first motivated you to pursue a career in public service and just why you've remained passionate about it through all these years.
Yeah, so I grew up in Southeast Asia. I was born in Thailand during the Vietnam War. My dad was a Vietnam service member. He was a World War II, Korea, Vietnam. He retired in 1973 and went to work for the United Nations refugee programs and development programs. So I followed my dad from refugee camp to refugee camp, bringing aid to Cambodian and Vietnamese refugees. In fact, I was in Cambodia until 2 weeks before the Khmer Rouge took over. I left on the last commercial flight out. As a child, some of my earliest memories is watching Phnom Penh basically disintegrate under bombing. But my dad kept us there because his job was to bring as much aid and help as possible into Cambodia. But the bottom line is I followed him going to refugee camp where America was a shining hope, where I was privileged just to be born an American because my American GI dad had stayed and did not abandon my mom. And I knew that through pure chance, I was an American citizen with full rights as opposed to so many of the other kids who were Amerasian kids who looked just like me but were street children because they'd been abandoned. And I watched the American ambassador bringing aid over and over again. And I said when I was 8 years old, that's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to serve in the Foreign Service. I want to serve, and because I was just so grateful for being an American. And, people looked up to us, not because America had the greatest military on the face of the earth. In fact, we just lost the Vietnam War. Yet people still valued America, wanted to do business with Americans, wanted to send their kids to American schools. Those Amerasian street kids were trying to prove they were Americans. And so I just felt growing up that I wanted to give something back. I thought I was going to do it in the Foreign Service, ended up doing it in the military, and accidentally became a politician along the way.
And now here you are, and the rest was history. And why do you think it's important to build the pipeline of AA and HPI leaders in public service, such as yourself?
Well, because we need representation. AA and HPI Americans are critical to our country's national security and our future, remaining in a role as a global leader, as an economic leader. And we don't get there without AA and HPIers, right? We're the fastest, we all know the statistics, we're the fastest growing demographic by percentage in the country. And if you look at where we're positioning ourselves in terms of near-peer competitors, it's not Russia. Our greatest near-peer competitors economically and national security-wise is in the Indo-Pacific. And we need to leverage the homegrown talent we have of AA and HPIers to help us to continue to lead the world. And the future, then the rest of this century and the next century is going to be the Asia-Pacific story. And so why wouldn't we want to elevate as many AA and HPIers to the highest levels of government to help lead our country as we lead on a global scale? And so that's why. But we got to fix the problem right now. some of you have heard me say the statistics. There are more white men named John in the U.S. Senate today than there are women of color. There's 10 guys named John, white guys named John, on both sides of the aisle, and I think there's 4 of us women of color. We got to fix that.
Wow, that's such a staggering statistic. And in that vein, what has it been like for you as an AAPI leader to see the Stop Anti-Asian Hate movement over the past few years and to see the rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans?
Well, it's been very personal for me because I think all of us have experienced hate crime either ourselves or, more importantly, some of our family members, especially our elderly family members, if you're Asian American in particular. During COVID, my mom moved from Hawaii to be with me because I didn't want her out there isolated by herself. I said, Mom, if I try to get to you, I'd still have to do quarantine for 2 weeks and you'd be there by yourself. So she moved back in with me, and she was at the grocery store trying to buy grapes for my 2 daughters so that she could peel them before she fed them to their babies, because this is what Asian grandmothers do.
Very Asian mom.
All right, love language, peeling you fruit, and she'd peel grapes for, I'm like, you never peeled grapes for me. On the other hand, she still peels and serves me, mangoes, so I can't complain. And this woman at the grocery store wearing a mask kept shoving my mom aside, and it was a grocery store worker who said, I have to wear this because of your Kung Flu virus. This is your, and just kept shoving my mom aside. And my mom was like, look, I'm trying to buy grapes for my granddaughter. Leave me alone. But that was like the most mild form. I mean, it was hate, but she wasn't shoved to the ground. She wasn't beaten up. She wasn't, beaten within an inch of her life like was happening across the country. So I'm really proud that we were able to work on the Stop Anti-Asian Hate from our position. And I say our because Maisie Hirono and I really worked on that effort at the federal level. With the members of KPAC, but also at the grassroots level, seeing all the people out there working to stop the hate as well.
Yeah, I think every Asian American has a story like that. I mean, my own dad, he was in the Air Force for 20 years. He was on the Metro in uniform, and someone yelled at him, go back to China. And, he served. So I also wanted to ask you about the perpetual foreigner myth, because I was so interested in what you said you were so grateful to be an American. But there are, a lot of racists out there who look at people who look like you and me and just think perpetual foreigner. Talk about the importance of dismantling that myth and just dispelling that.
Well, I mean, it continues to happen. I mean, it's happened with my colleagues. I get the, where are you from originally? I'm like, no, I'm from here.
No, but where are you really from?
Where are you from? Yeah. Well, in every campaign, I'm sorry to get political, but in every campaign I've ever run in, my opponent has questioned my Americanness. And questioned whether or not I truly belong and I should be elected, and tried to use my otherness in their eyes against me. Now, it's failed every time because everyone who's raised that, I've kicked their asses. I heard you can swear in this group, right? I heard that this is a group I can swear in front of. So something happened yesterday. I don't know what it was, but that's true. In my latest run my first run for the Senate, my opponent, now my dad's family has been here since before the Revolution. They came over as indentured servants to a British lord before the Revolution. I said, well, I'm from America, and I'm a daughter of the American Revolution. And my opponent said, oh, yeah, sure, your folks came from Thailand to fight for George Washington. And so you see this happening over and over again. All I can do is just be myself and just say, it doesn't matter how soon you come here. If you're here and you love this country and you choose to become an American and your loyalty is to here, that's all. That's enough. It doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter for Irish Americans, it shouldn't matter for Asian, AA, and HPI Americans. And in fact, we have some of the highest per capita rates of service in the military among all the ethnic groups.
Absolutely. And turning now to policy, what would you say are some of the most important legislative issues for you right now?
Well, this week, hopefully the House is going to pass the FAA bill. So I'm really pleased that we passed it from the Senate. A lot of money in the FAA bill to keep our airspace safe. Pilot training, air traffic controllers, all of that. A lot of access for persons with disabilities to air travel. So I'm very pleased that we got the FAA across the finish line. I am continuing to work on the humanitarian crisis that's happening. While we need to allow Israel to defend herself, there's a humanitarian crisis that's happening in Gaza right now. So today there are 20 American doctors trapped in Gaza at the European hospital. We're trying to help them leave and then get another fresh group of doctors in. One of them actually saved my life in Iraq, so texting back and forth with him real time. And then we have the Farm Bill coming up. I want to do Chips and Science 2.0, which really promoted investments in the United States, in particular from friends and allies like Taiwan, like other countries we've been allies with for a long time, Thailand, for example, to make those investments in the United States, or to friendshore those parts of our logistical network that cannot be manufactured in the US for cost purposes. Let's friendshore those in places like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand. Let's continue to make investments in rebuilding our presence in Guam, keep our promises to Micronesia, and really just expand our presence in the Indo-Pacific. That's really the core of the work that I do in Armed Services Committee and Foreign Relations Committee. And I'm leading a CODEL bipartisan to the Shangri-La Dialogues at the end of the month to talk about national security challenges.
And I know that IVF has also been a big issue for you as of late.
Yes. So IVF is, we're going to get a vote on the floor. Senator Schumer has promised me, and Mazie as well, that we're going to get a vote on the floor called the Protect IVF Act. So hopefully that will happen within the next couple of months.
And what would you want your legacy in public service to be?
I hope that it's all the folks who I've been able to help run for office, and all my staff members. You know, I was when I became a senator, the first thing I served on was a committee, the 2040 Initiative, and Sherrod Brown was my partner. And the idea is to make sure that by 2040, over 50% of all staffers in the Senate would be ethnically diverse, so they would more accurately represent the American population. Because it's not just about electing us diverse representation in Congress. That's important. But really, a lot of the power, a lot of the decision making happens with the staffers, and we have to get more people in the pipeline. If you look at who the chiefs of staffs are, if you look at who really help to run the legislative branch and even the executive branch, AAA and HPIRs are not at the top levels of government, right? We still don't have a confirmed secretary level, departmental secretary. Now, Julie Su is lovely, and she's being blocked in a very racist way, and we're going to try to get her confirmed still, but we still don't have a confirmed cabinet secretary, and that needs to change.
And speaking of that, I know we have a lot of young people here in the room, college students, early graduates. What advice do you have for those students who are looking to get into public service but might not know where to start?
Be active. I mean, if you talk to Senator Ossoff, if you talk to any of the folks from Georgia, they'll tell you that young AA and HPIers made the difference in Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff's election. AA and HPIers delivered Georgia for Democrats. Thank you, young people, and all the field people. I know there's some of you who went out there and spent a lot of time in Georgia, and so young AA and HPIers can make a difference. Volunteer for those campaigns. Run for office yourself. There's no age limit, to run in a lot of offices where you make the difference. For example, run for those school boards. That's where and run for those library boards of trustee positions. That's where decisions on what books are getting banned and what books are going to get left in our libraries. So go and run for those positions. Go and pursue your career. You don't have to make you don't have to become a civil servant. You don't have to make government service your whole life's work. Go make your generational wealth. Go make your fortunes, but at the same time, volunteer and do some work in other places as well. That's equally important as well. So what I say to them is be active no matter what you choose to do. Be the doctors that your moms and grandmoms want you to be, but also volunteer to be. I know I'm like, and I did not do what my mom wanted me to do. She cried when I said I was joining the Army and becoming a helicopter pilot. But continue to represent and show up because you do make a difference.
And also advice for women out there and working moms and those who are trying to do it all. What advice do you have for them?
It's a lie. There's no such thing as work-life balance. There isn't. And the sooner that you recognize that, the sooner you can take the next step, which is something I had to learn because you just can't do enough. I decided to run for the Senate while I was on maternity leave with my first daughter. And I didn't want to run for Senate, but I also knew timing-wise, if I wanted to become a senator, that was the best race for me to be in. And whenever I was with the campaign, I felt like I was failing as a mom, trying to pump breast milk while preparing for a debate, trying to fly out to California to fundraise. Hello, all my California people. Thank you. Thank you. But then pump breast milk and freeze it and ship it back to my daughter, and now I'm away from my newborn, right? I felt like a failure as a mom when I was out trying to campaign, but then when I was with my daughter, I felt like I wasn't being a good candidate. So there was just not enough of me, and I had to learn to set parameters. And I think that's the most critical thing. As a senator, Senator Gillibrand really taught me about setting parameters and forcing others to comply and calling out their bullshit when they say they're pro-family, but then they don't have pro-family policies. And, for example, I don't take meetings before 9 a.m. because I drop my daughters off at school at 8:30. I wake them up, I get them dressed, I argue with them about brushing their teeth, I make their school lunch, argue with them about what they're having for school lunch, and then I drop them off. And then I take my first meeting. And if my colleagues want to set a meeting for 8, they're not going to see me, and they're going to have to learn to deal with that. And setting those clear parameters, changing the rules on the Senate so I could bring my baby onto the floor. And now the men love it. More men have brought babies onto the floor since we changed the rules. All of that has to happen, but that's what I say to women who work outside the home, is understand that there's no such thing as work-life balance, and we have to set and force those parameters on society and force society to change so that we can truly be both a mom and somebody who works outside the home.
And a happy belated Mother's Day to you.
Thank you.
I think I'm going to end with that famous. Oh, go ahead.
We went to Denny's for dinner.
Nothing
That's where my
wrong with
girls
that.
wanted to go. So we
Breakfast
went to
for
Denny's
dinner.
Hey, I
Always a
didn't
good
have
choice.
to cook dinner, so again,
There you go.
80% solution. I got free dinner, and my girls were happy.
And you didn't have to peel any grapes.
And I did not have to peel any grapes, and it wasn't super expensive.
There you go. A win-win. I'm going to end with that famous reporter question. Anything else you wanted to touch on that I didn't ask?
I want to thank APAICS so much for everything that you do. This is an organization, we talked about what do we want to do, what the legacy is those legislative leaders, right? Getting people and young people into legislative positions and making sure that they build that resume so that should they go into the commercial sector, they have the legislative background of having been on the Hill, working with members of Congress. On the other hand, if they want to go onto the Hill, this is such an important fellowship program that will help people to rise into the top ranks of government. And it starts with your, the youngest people who are just now graduating from college or not even graduating from college. So thank you for supporting this organization, because this is truly the future of our country. And until we have people who represent all of us and all the different flavors of Asian, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders, we're never going to have the legislation that truly will address the needs of all of our communities. And coming together like this is critically important. So thank you for supporting APAICS.
And I think we have a couple minutes left for questions, so if anybody wants to, I guess I'll just pass the mic around. Okay. Should have left more time. All right. Do you want to just come up, I guess?
Hi, Senator Duckworth. Thank you so much for your remarks. I'm obviously a young person and I'm getting involved in public service early in my career. And I guess my question to you is, what do you say to the young people that right now are extremely discouraged by how the government has been responding to certain issues like the ongoing genocide and climate change and the loss of our reproductive freedoms and are essentially losing hope in our governmental institutions? What do you say to us?
What I say to you is choosing to not participate is just letting the other side win. You got to field a team. You may be you may feel disenfranchised. They may have better equipment, more money. They may control more, but you got to field a team and you got to fight back. And so what I say to you is, this is the time to roll up your sleeves and get involved and show the difference that you can make. You woke up the Democratic Party with what young NHBIers did in Georgia. People get that. We won over 2 senators in Georgia who are the biggest champions for ANHPI participation. And so continue to do that and continue to force the change to happen. And sometimes you've got to get into the organization to force a change. It's how it got into politics. Because I was working at VA under President Obama, working for Secretary Shinseki, trying to fix the VA. And I realized I can't fix some of this stuff from within the apparatus. I mean, I've got to run for office to change the laws. And so we did that. And so that's what I would say to young people is participate and take charge and force the change to happen. And find ways to be part of the process of making that change happen. And there's no better way than getting involved politically. Okay, thanks.
Senator Duckworth, thank you first for your leadership. Thank you for your service and being the visible leader to our younger folks. My name's Kan Vu. I lead the Society of Asian Scientists and Engineers. So very geeky question here. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the support bill, CHIP 2.0. Will there be some advocacy in the Senate on the rare earth metals, because we know that technology is built on these rare earth, and the United States has less than single percentages on them. I know the White House issued support, but it's not even close to what we need to be the technological leaders that we need to be in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. So with the rare earth minerals, you should know that under the Inflation Reduction Act, there is a move away from obtaining rare earth minerals that are mined by communist government-owned firms, not Chinese firms, but PRC government-owned firms or PRC-controlled firms, that we can't use those rare earth minerals in production, which is why participating with other friends and allies that have rare earth minerals is important, and growing the capacity to access those rare earth minerals. One of the things I'm working on for Chips and Science 2.0 is looking at recycling the batteries and accessing the rare earth minerals that already exist. So much of that stuff goes into landfills, so it gets shipped back to overseas where the rare earth minerals are stripped out, and then the rest of that, your old phones and just goes into dumps to leach back into the ocean. So we have to fix that effort. I'm going to propose language in the Chips and Science 2.0 that if those batteries are already here in the United States and we recycle them in the US, I would consider those American, and that we should access to really promote the recycling of batteries and existing rare earth minerals that are already in the country, so that we stop shipping all of our used electronics back overseas just to contaminate other, the environments in other parts of the world. But let's recycle them. And I went and I visited. I've visited several recycling facilities where they're recycling like 98% of the batteries, that EV batteries even. So there's potential there, but we have to make those investments as a nation.
Senator Duckworth, thank you so much for coming. I am an alumni. I'm an alum of APAICS's new candidate training, and I was in the training a month and a half ago, and now I'm here.
Fantastic.
So I'm going to be launching a campaign eventually. I'm learning a lot. In my district in New Jersey, white Republicans have been leveraging the non-unity of South Asian Democrats and taking that to their advantage to diminish representation in state legislature. What do I do about that? Because white Democrats are telling me, trying to nudge me away from them, and to say, don't talk to these different groups, be careful and all that. And I'm dealing with that discrimination as I start with my campaign.
Yeah, I think you have to forge your own path. I mean, look at what Andy Kim has done. He would listen to the white Democrats. He wouldn't be the guy that's going to become the next senator from New Jersey. So, I think I would talk to Andy Kim first and foremost, because he's doing amazing work. And I think, yes, you listen to the establishment. Listen, I became a senator because Senator Dick Durbin supported me. So that was an establishment guy, right? You have to listen to your own gut as to what's right and what's not. And you have to reject some of that advice if it's not in keeping with who you are, and you have to build those coalitions where you can and change things. I think Andy Kim's a great example of someone who has great instincts, is doing the right stuff, and certainly was able to succeed even while rejecting those folks who said that they were in charge, but it turned out there was a pretty empty, weak leadership, because a lot of folks within New Jersey politics were already sick and tired of the system that was already in place.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know who's next.
Do we?
Here we go. There's folks.
Hi, ma'am. I'm Bianca Tai, and I am a civil affairs officer in the reserves. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for paving the way for Asian American officers such as myself. Going to active duty, it just felt like there was a lot of white faces in the command photos. And also, because of you, I'm graduating with my master's in public management on Monday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm hoping to go into public policy and making a change. And also, my question is, can I take a photo with you after this?
Absolutely. So it's funny that you say that. We have to get more representation, right? We've come a long way since the days when Daniel Inouye, is awarded at the time a lower medal than he deserved, which was the Congressional Medal of Honor, but he had a Silver Star, and yet came home and couldn't get a haircut because he was told it was for whites only. And yet when I went to flight school, they put up a picture on it was baby lieutenant training, and they put a picture and said, this is what you all should strive to look like. This is what the ideal Army officer looked like. It was a white guy with a buzz cut who was 6'2". I'm like, dude, I failed the first day I walk in here because I'm never going to look like that. I failed the first day by being who I am and having to change that. So your representation, showing up, going overseas and showing people what an Army officer looks like, and you're that Army officer, to the rest of the world is critically important. It goes back to our earlier conversation about representation matters. I remember going to Egypt on Operation Bright Star, and I was the platoon leader, and we landed our helicopters next to the French and the Brits and the Germans, and people were coming to take a look at the helicopters. They wanted to take pictures and stuff, and they were asking Illinois National, I was in the Illinois National Guard, and from Chicago, right? The rest of my guys were Irish and Polish. It was all tall white guys with blonde hair, and there was me. And they would go to the white guy and say, hey, can we look at your helicopter? They're like, no, I'm not in charge. She is. The little Asian girl? Yeah, she's the platoon leader. So showing up matters. Being the face in that uniform matters. So thank you for serving. But we still have a long way to go.
Absolutely. All right, I think we're getting the wrap signal, and I know people are hungry, so let's hear it for Senator Tammy Duckworth.
Thank you, everyone.
so much.
Come do the photo on the side real quick. Thank you.